You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
Hi, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast, a proud member of the CLNS radio broadcast. Make sure you download and subscribe and like all of those channels as well. All right, as for us, it's Pat Lane with my guy Matt St. Jean. And Matt, before we get into football, there's another sport, little basketball series going on right now, and it hasn't been going well.
Yeah, I'm just, I think there's a lot of things that can be said about the Boston Celtics right now. I would just like to start with a comment about the discourse and where we're at. If you open up any place where people were talking about it, there's an automatic assumption that the first two games means that Jason Tatum stinks. He was never a good player, ever. Last year's championship is now invalidated, and the Celtics have lost this and the season's over. The hell are we doing? Oh my god. The last two games have absolutely stunk. And the fact that it was just a repeat performance in game 2 of what happened in game 1. Oh my god. Awful. Awful. Every player on the roster is underperforming what they should be doing right now. Every single guy they're putting out there. And it stinks to watch. The idea that 2 games where were decided by a total of 1 point at the end of regulation, an NBA playoff game against a team that's won 60 games in back-to-back years, like the idea that the season is over and that this is it is just like, I don't know. They lost 2 games because a couple shots didn't go in. Unfortunately, that's basketball, and I think the only thing you can do is just make the shots go in next time. Like that's to me, that's really all there is.
Yeah.
Like there's like little adjustments and stuff that can be made, but like I don't know. The Celtics are still favored to win this series. They are betting favorites to win this series right now. Right. And if you listen to anyone talking about it, you would think that the season was already over.
Yeah, it's wild. So, by the way, hello to Nelson. Thanks for being here as always. I mean, they missed 45 threes in the first game. If they hit one single extra three, if they miss 44 threes instead of 45, they win. Last night, they missed a ton of threes again. If they hit one more three, or 2 for that matter, they win the game. So we're talking about one shot. And don't even get me started on the people complaining about the Jason Tatum corner 3 where Horford's by himself underneath. The play, Horford drove to the basket and caused the contact, which caused his guy to fall at Horford's feet. Tatum's wide open in the corner with like a full second to shoot. I was talking to someone today, and they're like, well, he could have taken a mid-range. I was like, a mid-range? Why would he ever take a mid-range? What are you talking about? He's wide open from 3. He's a good 3-point shooter. You take that damn shot. That's what you do. Horford drove to create the open shot. You got the open shot. You take it. Like, it just I fully admit and agree. What sickens me is the fact that they won't go at Brunson. Brunson's 5'10". Like, go at him. You know, you're talking about Tatum and you're talking about Brown, 6'9", 6'8" guys, like 6'10", like just go right at him. He can't stop you. And then if they collapse on you, great, pass it out after that. Like, it just that drives me crazy. And I will say A-Dub is right here that Tatum, that last shot was rough with Tatum. But here's what I'll say about that. I think maybe the person having the worst series, the worst start to the series, is Joe Mazzulla. He's been atrocious. You go, 7.5, 8 minutes without hitting a basket? You don't call a timeout. You don't even sub anyone in. Like, get something else going, man. Then you got, 11 seconds left or 8, however many seconds were left after the free throws. and he didn't call a timeout. And then Tatum's like, you can see nothing's going on, and Tatum's not getting to where he was supposed to be. And he said, we wanted to run the same type of play, and it didn't look good. Great, then run over and call timeout. Like, what are you doing? Once you see it's not going to be there, and you know it's not going to happen, call timeout and drop a play. But then again, you called timeout and drew up a play at the end of overtime in game one, and came up with like an absolutely horrendous inbounds play that had never had a chance of working. Even if Jaylen Brown somehow got that shot up, there was no way that was going to work. So I just Joe Mazzulla's been bad these first two games, and Jason Tatum's been bad too. But everyone's underperformed, and they're still just barely losing these games.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's through two games, they are 25 of 100 from three. They've shot exactly 25% in both of these games. If they were 27 of 100, they would be 2-0 in the series right now. Like, they're clearly not playing their best basketball, but they have gotten wide open look after wide open look after wide open look with their best shooters from beyond the arc, and they're not falling. Like, then I do think one of the issues is that the Knicks have kind of said at this point, all right, beat us with the three, and they're collapsing really hard on every drive, and basically, I want to see them take it to the basket, but the reason that Tatum got that dunk when he did at the end of the last game was mostly because the Knicks misplayed it, and we're trying to run him off the three-point line, and he just went right by him and dunked it. That's like the only time that they were giving up anything like that all game long. So, and they missed. They took a lot of twos in the fourth quarter last night too, and they missed those. The shots just aren't going in. They have the yips. I will say on the Joe Mazzulla stuff, I think there are things to criticize with him. I also, we'll see how this looks when we come back on the show next week. But I think there is potentially a comparison that could be made here. So, Dan Hurley, we're going to go back. He's a UConn men's basketball coach. We're going to go back to, I think it's January 2003, I believe is when this was. Or it might have been 2000. No, not 2023.
2023, yeah. I was like, geez, we're going way back.
Yeah. UConn absolutely dominated the non-con stretch. Then they got into January against conference teams, and they lost a whole bunch of close games in a row. And a lot of people said, hey, Dan Hurley, he does not know how to get his team to win close games. And UConn started playing better basketball, and they go in the NCAA tournament. People are like, I don't know how this team's going to handle if they have to play close games. Do you know what UConn did? They just chose not to play close games. They just blew out every single team that they played, which we know the Celtics are capable of. Mazzulla might have some things here to work on when it comes to close games. You blew out the Knicks like every time you played them this season. If you hit shots the way you did all season long, then these games, you're winning by 20 points, both of these first two games. And nobody cares. We're talking about how great a coach he is because they keep getting wide open looks and they're hitting them.
Right.
Like, that's what we're going to be talking about here. So, like, obviously the game management stuff, I think rotations and then trying to get Horford a rest and maybe calling timeouts at some of these points or having some different things to run up. I think it's fair criticisms. I also think, if everybody played the way they have for the other 87 games this season, nobody's talking about that because you're winning. Like, I would fair. Like, if they shoot the way they have all season and they bounce back to that, I won't be surprised if they win this, not in 7, but in 6. What do they have to do? They have to beat the Knicks 4 times in a row. When did they last do that? Oh, the last 4 times they played the Knicks before this series. Very capable of doing it. I'm not, and these 2 games show that, like, it kind of took everything going the Knicks' way just for them to win. It just happened to happen the exact same way 2 games in a row. And it sucks to lose a 20-point lead. You also got to build a 20-point lead to get there. And the Celtics had a really good middle of the game in each of the last 2, where they were able to build that lead. It's just, you kind of tell in both of them they weren't hitting a lot of shots. And you're like, man, they're up by 20. They should be up by 30 right now because they should hit a couple more shots. And then it comes back to bite you down the stretch. And that's where you got to take advantage of it. Push it to 30. Push it to 35 when you can and hit, a couple extra shots. And then you hit a couple of those shots, they're going to come out on you, and then you can take it to the basket and get your mismatch on Brunson and just dunk it on him.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see. I hated the fact I felt like they wilted under the pressure. I felt like they knew they had blown the 20-point lead the game before. They were nervous about it. The Knicks were just trying to get it with. I mean, they literally said, we just want it within 10 points. And then we feel like we're okay. Like, are you serious? You said that against the Celtics. Like, I don't like that. And so I think the Celtics had it in their head. They were worried about it. They went out and played like it. And so now you got to go out with that killer mindset and go in and win game 3 and then hopefully win game 4. And now if you come back to Boston tied 2-2 with the road teams winning all 4 games, you feel good about where the series is going. You lose one game in New York and you're in trouble. You lose this game, the series is over. But if you lose one in New York, you're in big trouble. I think they could theoretically still win down 3-1, but it's a tall task. You got really kind of have to go there and win both games. But first thing is you got to win this game. You lose this game, series is over.
I don't even know if I would go that far, just because, like I said, all they have to do to beat the Knicks is win 4 in a row, and they literally just did that in the regular season.
Right.
And like the games have all been so close. It might be over in that they might just not have their legs, because it might be them not being mentally tough enough. It might also be that like Jaylen Brown's banged up, Drew Holiday's banged up, Al Horford you can see his age starting to show, especially with Porzingis being sick, and it's like Porzingis isn't good when he's on the floor right now. And then you look at him on the bench and he's clearly gassed. Like he's just got nothing. I don't know what's going on there. So it's like, all right, now, like especially with lower body injuries for Brown and Holiday, it's like that might impact the shooting. And if those guys just won't be able to shoot and won't have their legs under them, okay, this is a very different team than we saw in the regular season. And it might be a little bit tougher to pull it out. But I don't know. My mantra coming into the playoffs is I was not going to be worried about the Celtics until they had lost 3 games in a series, because we know how good this team is. We saw them win last year. Yeah, hell, 2 years ago they almost came back from down 3-0 at like the same point against the Heat. I think this is a worse Knicks team. I think Knicks team's probably not as mentally tough as that Heat team, and most importantly, like that Heat team shot a crazy amount from 3, and the Celtics couldn't shoot the ball, and they were crazy physical. The Knicks are not that good in defense, and they're not that physical. You're going to get all kinds of open looks against them. They have all year long. They shot the ball well against them in the regular season.
That's
so
fair.
like, I think they should beat them still. I still feel good about it, even though the last 2 games just sucked to watch.
Yeah. I kind of in the same boat. I don't think the season's over, but I'm worried. So we'll see.
The last thing I will say, I think Bridges deserves a lot of credit for his play at the end of that last game, because like I think you watch it and you can see one thing that Jason Tatum's always been very good at, especially this season, recognizing when he's drawing a double or a triple team and then getting it to the guy who's uncovered so that they can score. It's one of the reasons he's one of the best players in the league, is because he can score if you give him a one-on-one, and if you double team him, he will still kill you with the pass. And the Knicks brought a triple team, and Tatum realized that, and he knew exactly where Jaylen Brown was, and gets him the basketball, except Bridges knows and reads that Tatum is reading that he's coming in and backs off at the last second right into the passing lane. And like, I think that's one of those where Tatum makes a good play and Bridges just makes an even better one. And you just got to tip your cap and say you got beat on it.
I mean, he also single-handedly brought the Knicks back. We scored 13 straight points for them after having 0 in the first 3 quarters. So he just like couldn't miss in the fourth quarter, and brought them back. So we'll see. Celtics going to need a performance like that from somebody. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's Tatum. It doesn't matter if it's Brown. It really doesn't make a difference.
Derek
right?
White.
So it could be Derek White.
It's going to be when they got all series. They've gotten wide open looks in the corner, which is the best 3-point shot. That's your shortest 3-point shot. That's the one you want if you can get it. Right. They've got it. They're hitting. I think they're like 4 of 19 on corner threes this series.
Yeah, it's bad.
They're like they're shooting like 20%, and they shot almost 40% on those in the regular season. It also means you might get a game or two here where they're going to go 60% on those. Right. They're going to start to catch up a little bit, and you might score 140 points on Saturday and blow that.
And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I will say, what the heck was I going to say to you? I don't remember. I just think it's been incredibly frustrating to watch. And I know what it was. The Tatum stuff is crazy. I mean, we think about, and someone tweeted out, is this the biggest game in Tatum's career, which is insane. But arguably the biggest game of Tatum's career at one point was that Game 6 in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
In an elimination game. He drops 45 points in that game and like single-handedly brings the Celtics to victory in that game. And that
was when the Bucks were the defending champs.
Yes. And so that's the thing. Like, he's done it. It's not like he's never done it. He's done it before. He's not doing it in these 2 games. But he also last series had 3 straight games with 35 plus points. Like, it's not like, it's not like he's a bad player. He's had 2 really bad games. The chemistry has looked off. The offense has looked bad. The defense at times has looked bad. And like, that's definitely the case, right? So
they're also allowing 95 points per game in regulation against the Knicks. So like the defense, I think, has had some real rough moments. The overall production has actually been pretty good. Like, it's
fair.
Yeah. Well, and Jason Tatum deserves criticism for the way he has played in this series. The way people talk about Jason Tatum is as if they've ignored every single basketball game he has played for the last 5 years.
Right. Yeah, it's foolish.
Like, he has the NBA record for most points in a Game 7.
I know. Yeah.
I saw somebody describe him as like, oh yeah, well, if you take out the fluke 40-point games he has, he's not that good. It's like, fluke 40-point games. What are we talking about here? Like that Orlando Magic account that says the Celtics were flagrant foul baiting. Like, okay, you're just making up new concepts to discredit things because you don't.
Yeah, it's just
If you want to hate the Celtics because you don't like the Celtics because you don't like Boston, fine. That's what makes sports fun. But like, please keep it remotely tethered to the reality of what has happened. Like, please acknowledge that Jason Tatum scored 35 points a game for 3 straight games after getting injured against the number 2 defense in the NBA. When was that, Pat? 5 years ago? 3 years ago? Last week, actually.
Oh, last week. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But that doesn't matter anymore, apparently.
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
It's crazy. But I don't know.
It just gets me. Maybe it's me living in New York, having to deal with my coworkers. But
that certainly could be. It. So we are going to get some Patriots talk. We got to get there. People are asking about it, and I agree with you.
Yes, 3D pool tile.
Yes. We're getting the Patriots. Right after I say that Rafael Devers is right.
Yeah, we can circle back to. I think.
Right.
Do you know that subreddit? Am I the asshole? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
And you know how like one of the judgments you can give in it is everyone sucks here?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I feel about this situation.
Bingo. Don't pick up a glove. No. We mean it. Don't pick up, literally don't ever pick up a glove. Oh, you want to play third base? Too bad you can't play third base. Don't pick up a glove. You pick. Okay. All right, cool. One guy gets injured. Go play first base. Okay.
It's like,
hey,
the team is asking Devers.
All I can think of is Scott Hatteberg from Moneyball, where he's like, "We want you to play first." He goes, "First? Yeah, it's easy. Tell him Wash."
Incredibly difficult.
It's incredibly difficult. It's so good. It's so perfect. It's like Devers never played first base. What are you doing? It's insane.
Well, I think what's pretty clear here is that if they had been honest with him from the jump, what they should have done was at the start of spring training said, we want you to be a designated hitter. We want you to focus on hitting. You're also going to be our emergency third baseman and emergency first baseman if that ever comes up.
Right.
So we're going to give you some practice reps there. Don't expect to play it. This is not going to be one of your primary duties, but if we get into a situation, we might need to. Because we're a month into the season, and they're saying that the only backup plan they have at first base is the guy who they told a month ago you never have to pick up a glove.
Yeah.
You had to convince him into that. Which, it's just like, did you have a plan? But
yeah. Let's not even get into it. People are asking for the Patriots. We got to talk about the Patriots before I lose my mind talking about the stupid Red Sox. So let's get into it. Rookie minicamp starts tomorrow or today if you're listening on Friday. And so we wanted to get into. We've talked a ton about the draft class and rightfully so, by the way. And my dad actually texted a question about Highsmith's son getting hired, so we'll talk about that. But let's talk a little bit about the UDFAs. And by the way, there are two that I think everyone knows by now.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's Efton Chisholm from Eastern Washington, right? Slot receiver. Everyone's very excited about him. And Lan Larison, who, steer wrestler, dual threat, good running back, really good receiver, you know, a homeless guy's Christian McCaffrey, right? Um, and so, both, I think those guys have gotten the most excitement from Patriots Nation. And I think rightfully so, right? Like Chisholm's a guy that kind of fits the mold of what a slot receiver has looked like in a Josh McDaniels offense. And so people kind of automatically project it there, not to mention the fact that he's white. And it's like, oh, a white slot receiver, like this would be perfect, right? I'd pump the brakes on that a little bit. I do think that he looks the part. He also ran a 4.7. Like,
Yeah.
there's a reason why he didn't get drafted, right? So, like, I like him a lot. I'm excited to watch him. I'm not expecting him to make the team. Maybe he will. I'm not expecting him to make the team. Lan Larison, I feel almost the exact same way. I'm excited to see him. I want to see the kid play. I'm excited about the fact he can do a bunch of different things, and he's like a really fun guy to watch, and he's a great hands and everything else like that. He ran like almost a 4.6.
Yeah.
He's not super fast either, and he's not a bulldozer. So, like, that doesn't mean it can't work. I'm just not expecting him to make the team. Maybe he does, and and who knows. But I also think that these are guys that might end up in the practice squad, which I don't think is a bad thing, right? And so we'll see.
We talked in the last episode, breaking down the roster about how like part of right now is figuring out who you are in 2026 as well.
Yes.
So like making the practice squad for some of these guys is important because making a practice squad means obviously get to practice with the team. And if that goes well, you're going back into camp next year. So if you are Efton Chisholm or Demir Blankupsey or Jeremiah Webb, the three receivers they have, you might have a hard time beating out, let's say it's Jalen Polk, because they might say, hey, we're going to give Jalen Polk a look here because of the draft pedigree. And, we're going to let him be our sixth receiver. We're going to keep these other guys on the practice squad. You might have a hard time doing that this year. If you play well, you show up next year, you're going to have a real chance to earn a roster spot. Efton Chisholm, he's interesting because it's very easy to see how he fits.
Yeah.
I do think that the issue with him is not that fast. He's quick. He was quick for like an Eastern Washington receiver. Is he quick enough for the NFL? I'm not sure. Short arms.
The three cone and the shuttle are legit times, right? So
they are, but
know,
it's doing it in your underwear. So let's see how it looks when it's on 100%. The field. And he was basically a short catch only guy. So like, what does his role look like in the like? Because we've seen guys like this come in and not make it plenty with McDaniels and Belichick and Brady and all those guys. Who was like Austin Carr coming in the same mold?
Yep.
And did make the team, ends up New Orleans, and that's kind of it for his career. So like, I like Chisholm a lot. I'm not even sure if he's the guy I'm most excited by in this receiving core. Demir Blankupsey, he had some real production at Memphis, which is like a real school. It dipped off last year, but he had almost 1,000 yards in 2023, 7 touchdowns. Like you look at some of the clips, some of the highlights for him, and he has some real body control. And I look at a guy like that, and it's like, all right, if you've had production, you got some body control, he's got experience. He had 13 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. This is the kind of guy who might have a decent preseason, make the practice squad. There's just not going to be enough bodies for him to ever get catch passes from Drake May in camp.
Right.
But he might stick around, make it to camp next year, and like, all right, well, Bourne's a year older. Mac Hollins might not be here anymore. Now there's a little more open competition for the back end here, where some of these practice squad guys might get a real chance to push for a roster spot. And if he did well throughout the season, that's a guy who I think could make a push here. And Jeremiah Webb too. He wasn't as productive. He had a career high of just under 650 yards last year for Southern Alabama. but he's got some size. 6 foot, almost 200 pounds. And I do think it's funny that you look at the 3 UDFAs they signed, and you've got Efton Chisholm, who's a slot guy, Jeremiah Webb, who's got prototypical outside receiver size, and Demir Blankumsey, who profiles like a flanker. So it's
Right.
like, all right, we signed 3 UDFAs here who can very clearly just slide into the 3 roles. And when there's, 8 minutes to go in the third quarter in the first preseason game, and we said we're all right here, we could just toss them in and play football for a couple quarters, not have to worry.
Just see what happens. Yeah. I agree. That's cool. It's a good point. All right. Question for you. Who do you think, if I gave you one choice, you get one choice, which player do you think has the best chance to make the initial 53-man roster? Which UDFA?
So I'm gonna immediately cheat here. I kind of want to give you 2 because I think to make it.
No, because I have to give you one.
Okay. Then I'm gonna go with a name we haven't mentioned once on this show. This is a guy who's facing no competition for his roster spot, and that's Brock Lampy, fullback.
Yep.
I don't know how to scout fullbacks here. I have not dug deep into the Brock Lampy tape, but he seemed to play well at Northern Illinois. Got some size. He was also better as a receiver than you'd expect for a fullback.
Yeah.
Only 91 yards receiving last year, but like if you're hitting near 100 yards receiving as a fullback, I think that's decent. Seems to have some okay speed. He was a team captain for them. Let's just go through some of the other stats. Yeah, they had a really good rushing offense there at NIU, and he was part of that. So that to me is one
they
you
beat
need a
Notre Dame
fullback.
last year.
Yeah, it's like if you need a fullback too, there's only one on the roster. There is one other guy who could potentially slide into this role, and I feel like he might be the name you mentioned as the one guy you might like to make the roster. I'll give you a chance here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the guy that's number 1 on my list is Jermaine Dupree. Shout out to Thor Nystrom on that one. Dupree is just, I don't know if he's necessarily a fullback, but he's a prototypical blocking tight end. And so, Jaheim Bell, and I assume you're alluding to Jaheim Bell maybe could slide into that fullback spot. I just find that
not necessarily. I'm thinking that they might carry a third tight end who's a blocking tight end who is also the fullback. You might have to do that too.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. And so, we'll see what happens there. I just think that if you're talking about a prototypical blocking tight end, you don't have a blocking tight end on the roster right now. You don't. Like Hunter Henry does his best. Austin Hooper's not very good at it. Jaheim Bell stinks at it, although he got a little bit better last year, but he's still not very good at it. Dupree is like a legitimate blocking tight end. And so he comes in day one as your best blocking tight end. And so, does that mean he makes his team? No. But if he can show even a little bit of receiving upside, I think that he would have the inside track over someone like Jaheim Bell making the roster. Of course, who knows? But that's how I feel about it. Jaheim Bell did absolutely nothing last year in an offense that stunk. But that also may not be his fault. So who knows?
Yeah. No, and Bell was always going to be a developmental guy, and I think it's tough for him right now because one of his issues in college was that they didn't quite know what to do with him, and he transferred and getting adjusted to new places and all that. Now here he is in the NFL, and year 1 he doesn't really get a great coaching staff, and year 2 it's going to be new guys who might just say, see ya.
Right.
So that might be tough for him. The reason I was going to cheat here is because I think Dupree and Lampy might both make this roster.
Yeah.
If you want a fullback, Lampy's the guy, unless they bring in somebody else later. And Bell is like, I like him. I don't think he's necessarily a scheme fit for what McDaniels is going to like. He has to really show some growth as a receiver, I think, to keep him around. And Dupree is like, all right, there's a very clear path for him. He's physical. Right. He's a blocker. You can play him on special teams. There's a path for making the roster. There's a path to using him on game days.
Mm-hmm.
He can be functional as a backup, at least on paper. And what do you call it? Like he has a very defined role in the team. And if he plays special teams, he can be active on game day too. Bell kind of struggled on special teams last year. He seemed to improve, but he still was struggling. So like and they just don't have loyalty to him. So like I kind of feel like Dupree just ends up winning that out, unless the blocking doesn't translate, unless he's just not that good at it. If he's decent at it, I think he wins that. The other one to me is like I think a sneaky, interesting camp battle is going to be Lan Larison against Terrell Jennings. It's like I like Larison, I like what he brings. Terrell Jennings was physical in the preseason last year. I would not be shocked if Vrabel really likes him in that role. So we'll see. I've read that Vrabel in the past has only kept 3 running backs, so they might, we might have what looks like a very competitive battle between Larison and Jennings, and then we get to 4:05 on cut day, and it's neither of them made the roster.
Right. Yeah.
But we've done that before.
Sure have. We sure have. And so
there's 2 other names on offense, by the way, which I feel like we should just at least mention.
Sure.
G. Scott, the Ohio State tight end, similar in mold to Jaheim Bell, just kind of an athletic dude who never quite found his role. So that to me is another sign that I don't think Bell is going to be long for that roster, because they kind of have their own. If they like that mold of guy, like unless Bell shows something here, like I think he'll start at the top for your third tight end. He'll go into camp as your third tight end, and like maybe week 2 that might change. Like they're going to start him there, and then we'll see what happens. And then Ben Woldridge as the backup, is the third string quarterback. I think we're going to see a lot of him in preseason games. I think you're going to have to get ready to hear that name. I don't think he has any shot at making this roster, but maybe he'll be interesting for a camp body.
Yeah, and the man's been in college since 1947, so like, he's got some experience. 7 years in college for Ben Woolridge, living the dream out there, living the dream.
Good for him, man.
Are you kidding me, dude? I wish I had stayed 7 years in college. What is that?
Career high was still under 2,500 passing yards.
It's outrageous, yeah. Was it Tommy Boy where he's like, shut up, Richard. A lot of guys go to school for 7 years. Yes, they're called doctors. So Cielo Stroke asked about Lan Larison. Lan Larison is the guy that wrestles steer.
Yeah,
that is Lan Larison.
Cool dude. I hope he makes the roster because that's fun.
That's just fun. He's a fun guy. I
will say, because we're going through the offense and everything, I think we should also talk about the way they're going to divide reps in camp. One of the reasons that they got rid of Milton that they cited was that they just didn't think there were going to be enough reps for him. And I think that says a lot right there, because if you're trying to develop him, you need to say, all right, we're going to make sure every practice he gets 10, 15 throws in training camp minimum, so that we can give him an opportunity to grow here too. And that's Milton, plus you're going to have Dobbs, plus you're going to have somebody else. So you're dividing the reps with a lot of people. With this quarterback room they have right here, if you're having 100 throws a day, maybe, or it's probably going to be closer to like 70 throws a day in training camp, I feel like Drake May is going to have, if it's 70, Drake May is going to have like 55. Dobbs is going to have 10. Woldridge is going to have 5.
Right. Which feels right.
And I think they're going to be like, that is the development period for Drake May. It's going to be those 4 weeks there are going to be crucial. It's going to be all him, just his guys and these coaches. And that's your opportunity to learn everything in advance. And that's where I'm curious to because I think you could see a third team already developing pretty quickly here. Like it's going to be Ben Woldridge out there, and like a couple of these tight ends we've talked about are going to be out there. Like that's when like Demontre Jacobs or Sidney So, Tyrese Robinson, Marcus Bryant are going to be on the field in the offensive line. You're going to have those 3 receivers we talked about. So then of the other 9 receivers on this team right now, how do they rotate that with May? Because this is one of the other things. Like it's easy to talk around and be like, man, we're gonna have this camp battle with all 9 of these receivers, and we're gonna see who's the best coming out. Then you're gonna get to camp, and it's gonna be like, all right, well, we're gonna have these guys as the starting 3, and they're gonna get 40 reps with May every day, and everybody else is just fighting for what's left. So who those 3 guys are and how they perform right off the bat is going to be huge.
It's definitely interesting, and I do think that they'll and they always do, rotate guys in and out and stuff, but but not every down, not every play, right? And this is why, with such a loaded room, they have a huge room. They don't have a lot of great players, but they have a lot of bodies, right? When you get that many guys in the room, the question then becomes, where do you get the opportunities from? Where do you get the chance to show the type of player that you know you can be, and you want to show the coaches you can be that guy? It's in the offseason program. It's in minicamp. It's in OTAs. It's in all of those, that extra work that you're putting in, right? The offseason, all that stuff. You have to be here to work, and you have to make an impression before you get on the field, because if you don't, you're not going to get the opportunity on the field to make an impression, because you're going to be down the depth chart too far. And so we'll see, but that's going to be really fascinating to see where they kind of split things up. Where will Kyle Williams end up? Will Kyle Williams end up with that first team? And if he ends up with that first team, and I'm assuming Stephon Diggs, even if he's ready for week 1, is not going to be ready for training camp. So,
at least not
okay,
first,
Diggs,
2 weeks of camp.
Yeah, so Diggs, you would think, is going to be in that top unit. Obviously, he won't be in it for training camp. So now, who's going to take his spot in that top unit, and who are the other 2 guys that are in there? And then let's just say there's 5 guys that run with that top unit. Okay, who are the 2 guys that are going in and out, replacing guys? And so, that's a question that we won't know, and we won't know the answer to that until July. But it's fascinating, and that's the big battle to look for, because we just don't know what's going to happen. There's so many things that are up in the air, and this is the article that I wrote last week, or I guess the beginning of this week, about about the Patriots having so many question marks, and that leading to a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of different outcomes for the wide receiver room, a lot of them. One of the outcomes of the wide receiver room is that with better coaching, and with another year under the belt, and with a solid rookie, and a veteran player that can play, maybe even 2 veteran players that can play, this receiving core looks good again, right? And we're like, okay, not the best in the league, but like decent. And there's a world where this receiving core is just an absolute dumpster fire, right? Just a dumpster fire. Polk didn't grow. Baker didn't grow. Diggs is hurt and not himself, and then
Bourne has not recovered.
Right. And so, Bourne isn't fully recovered. Pop Douglas is fine, but you're looking at it saying, oh my God, like, we're back where we were last year.
What if,
right? And we don't have anyone that can get open, and we don't have any playmakers. And now what? And so that's not the most likely outcome, I don't think, but that's not an impossibility, right? There's so many question marks with this group.
There's a real scenario where it's like, week 1, you're starting receivers. It's Pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Foudy.
Right. It's possible.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing changed.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and you also talk about like the reps. Like, I think it's easy right now to say, we like the promise of Jalen Polk. We like the promise of Javon Baker. Can't wait to see what those guys can do in year 2. See if they can, show something they never showed last year. Well, what happens when we get to early August and it's all right? Well, these guys are only getting 1 series a day with the starters, and the offensive line might still not be great. So you're getting 1 series a day. And one of these plays is a screen pass, and one of these plays is broken up. All right, so you got 2 guys fighting for like 1 play every day, 2 plays every day to try to get the ball. That's not even like a chance to prove yourself. And that's just the nature of the league. You hear anecdotes all the time where, guy comes out of nowhere as a star player or has a breakout performance. And even the coaches are like, oh yeah, we had no idea this guy was this good. Why? Because he was running back 4 on the depth chart. He's touched the ball 3 times since training camp. And we just had to put him out there, and oh wow, he's actually all right. That happens sometimes. Yeah. I feel like the starting receivers, no Diggs, we're going day 1 of training camp. I feel like it's going to be 3 of these 4: Matt Collins, Kendrick Bourne, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams.
That feels right.
That is where I feel like they're going to land. And I wouldn't be shocked if they asked Kendrick Bourne to basically be super sub wide receiver 4 and just like lock into that role of someone who can just kind of do all the things, especially because he's played with May before and he's played this offense before. So they might say, hey, we don't need you to take all the reps. We're going to give reps to some of these other guys who might not. No, like Hollins hasn't played with May before. Kyle Williams is a rookie. Pop Douglas is playing for Josh McDaniels for the first time. So it's like, all right, let's get these guys acclimated to what's going on because Bourne might know already. And then Bourne's wide receiver 4. Booty would then be your wide receiver 5, I guess, in this. I don't know what to do with him because he's your most productive receiver last year. I also still didn't think the tape was anything special.
Right.
And it seems like they might not want him because they were talking about trading him. So, like, he could be in this group. He might not even be on the roster by the time we get to that point. I have no clue. And then the big question marks in Polk and Baker. Do they show you something? You know, we're going to have OTAs soon. Team's going to be getting together. That's go time for them. You need to make a good impression on the coaches from him, like, right away.
100%.
So you can get these opportunities.
Yeah. So we'll see. We're going to take a quick ad break. Before we do that, though, two more guys on the offensive side of the football we should mention. Both local guys. Two local guys. The first one, Jack Conley from Boston College. Offensive lineman, played right guard, has played right tackle, started 60 consecutive games at BC, and is from Connecticut. So a guy to kind of keep an eye on. You know, we'll see if he can do anything, but it's kind of a cool story, and we figured they'd get some BC guy, and they did, and so that makes a lot of sense. The other guy, great story here, is Merrimack guard. That's right, Merrimack guard. This is not – you see Merrimack G, you're like, wait a second, pro? Is that like a goalie? Like, what are you talking about? Like, who's coming from Merrimack? This is not hockey. This is football. Merrimack guard Cole Burdow. Burdow? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guard, obviously. Almost 6'5", 311 pounds. Started at ODU, Old Dominion, as a defensive tackle, and then moved to Merrimack as a guard. Pretty interesting. Local pro day is where the Patriots found this guy, and he ran a sub 5-second 40 at BC's pro day. So pretty cool. You know, pretty cool. Well, Jared says that Merrimack is his school. It's pretty cool. So we'll see. I mean, I don't expect either of those guys to make the team, but it is nice to kind of see some guys from these local pro days getting a look. There's a guy on the defensive side of the ball that we'll talk about when we come back. But just some interesting guys to take a look at. So let's take a quick ad break, and then we'll get to the defensive side of the football. And again, kind of focus on those UDFAs. All right, this ad break, as people know or should know, is for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 2,000. That's right, 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Cash in on the basketball players with Prize Picks. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, or all three, take your pick of more or less for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. And don't forget, you can turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Every round, every lineup that you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the takes to tickets sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. I mean, come on now. All right. So, again, one of the things I love about Prize Picks is that you can mix and match. So you want a guy from the basketball playoffs and a guy from the hockey playoffs and a guy from baseball? Do it. You can do it all, right? Esports, even if you want, doesn't matter. You can mix and match your sports, which I think is really cool. And again, Venmo, PayPal, Apple Pay, right? MasterCard, PayPal is incorrect. I'm sorry. Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and a few others as well. You can get money in and out very quickly. Okay. Every Tuesday, you're going to get Taco Tuesdays, which usually about 15 to 25% off. Lowered expectations for each one of the guys, or not for each one of the guys, but for a good amount of guys. And then every single Friday is Flex Friday. Flex Friday, you check that box, says you want to flex this, and either you win it or you get promotional dollars back. So you can't lose, which is great. So what you're going to do is you're going to put in the promo code CLNS. Download the Prize Picks app, put in the promo code CLNS, and when you play your first $5 lineup, you'll get $50 instantly. You don't have to win the lineup, you just got to play it. So again, download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and when you play your first $5 lineup, you'll get $50 instantly. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. So, a few guys on the defensive side of the football. Defensive side of the football is interesting. They brought in a safety, I think, and someone Nelson, I think, had mentioned it before. Javari Ritzy and then Elijah Ponder. Those are two interesting guys. Ponder's really an outside linebacker, kind of probably will end up being an edge from Cal Poly.
Mm-hmm.
6'3", 250, decent arm length, pretty good wingspan, like decently fast, decently athletic. Like, these tweener guys. Cam Riley's a similar guy, tweener, more of an off-ball linebacker. But like, I feel like at this spot, you're getting some of those like tweener players that you're like, wow, let's just see what happens, right? Like, let's just stick this guy in and see if he can do something, and you never know,
Yeah. No, Ponder is the kind of guy, like, he profiles as a special teamer in a lot of ways, because it's like, all right, here's a guy who's football player, sized and shaped, and he can hit people. So we can put him out on special teams and do something. And you know what? Maybe he turns into like a pass rusher or something on the side too. We might be too small for that. It's not much as a run stuffer. Like, he's small to be an edge guy. But maybe if he plays his way onto a roster as a special teamer, he'll be able to contribute as a pass rusher at some point if he develops and does something you didn't expect.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Ritzy's an interesting guy, 6'4", 294. Does have a track background, and he had an 84-yard pick six last year, which is, for a defensive tackle, is just something, man. And so that's, 1 year starter, I believe. Only started, I think, 12 games last year. Well, I started all 12 games last year, but really only had the 1 year starting under his belt. So not really proven, but an interesting guy with some upside, 6'4", just a shade under 300. Say that again?
Which player did you say this was?
Javari Ritzy from UNC, North Carolina.
I didn't see him on their depth chart.
But maybe he's not on the depth chart. I'm looking at Mike Reese's report, and Mike Reese's report, it does say per source. So maybe the Javari Ritzy is not the guy I'm looking at.
I wonder if he's one of those guys who was a camp invite. I'm looking at the Our Lads depth chart, and they do not have him on there. So
it could certainly be the case. I wonder if Mike Reese has failed me.
Well, there was definitely some confusion at first about which guys were undrafted free agents and which guys were minicamp invites.
Yeah. Let's see. Professional career. Oh, there's nothing on the professional career part. Javari Ritzy. I got nothing, bro. I think Mike Reese may have lied to me. Oh, no. Carolina football signed Javari Ritzy with the New England Patriots.
Is he on their roster?
I have no idea, but there's an Instagram post from UNC saying that he signed with the Patriots.
Now I'm checking the official team site.
I'm just checking. I'm just going off what Instagram says. So
they may have lied because I don't even see him on the official roster right now.
Oh goodness! Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, I didn't realize like they did assign numbers for the undrafted free agents. It looks like.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. They hadn't the last time I had checked on here.
That's interesting.
Or they actually no, they haven't. They haven't added the undrafted free agents. That's what it is.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so they haven't officially now. All right, that's interesting because you're talking about a guy, and I was like, wait, I have no idea who this guy is that you're talking about right now. There seems to be some real mixed information here about if he's a Patriot or not.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, so one other guy I want to talk about because it's just so cool. The Patriots signed a guy from Endicott University, the Endicott Gulls. I'm sorry. Did not sign him. They invited him to Patriots rookie minicamp. He was at the BC Pro Day and absolutely lit up the BC Pro Day. Just lit up the BC Pro Day. Showed incredible athleticism, incredible burst, which is awesome. The issue is, it's just a small thing. It's small. It's a small thing. He's like 5'11", like 230 pounds. As a defensive end. But hey, listen, I mean, you never know. He's explosive and stuff. So maybe his small frame and short arms will be fine. But it's still a cool story. The fact that he's from Endicott, went to school in Boston and is getting a try with the Patriots. So it's pretty cool. So
I like that.
So there you go. Val says that Ritzy is a Patriots UDFA. I agree.
So Mike,
but he's just not on the he's not on the odd lads, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah. So Mike Reese said that he signed, and I don't see anybody else saying that he did.
Which is weird because, like I said, UNC tweeted it out. Well, I mean, UNC posted it on Instagram. He posted it on Instagram. So if he's posting it on Instagram,
he tweeted and he said, "Thank you for this opportunity" about the Patriots, which doesn't quite make it clear if it's.
Yes, what I'm saying to you is that he literally.
It's saying he signed.
Oh, yes, it literally got posted on there saying that he signed.
Okay.
UNC tweeted something out. UNC posted an Instagram post that he had signed with the Patriots, and then he reposted, or however you do it on Instagram, he reposted their post or something. I don't really know how it works, but there he was. So
it's very interesting that it's only one guy saying, and it's Mike Reese is the best in the business for the Patriots. So if he says it, I'm inclined to believe it. But it's interesting I've never been in a spot like this where
it's interesting.
Still aren't quite sure which guys are actually on the roster.
According to Val, Barth has written it as well. So
okay, all right. Well, then he is. We'll say he tested the combine, had a great RAS, very athletic dude, which is pretty sweet.
Which makes sense. I mean that 84-yard pick six from a D tackle, you would assume is pretty. The guy should be pretty athletic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's another name I wanted to mention on here for defensive line, and that's Wilfred Penny.
Mm-hmm.
He played tight end and defensive line in high school, and then just defensive line. It looks like for Virginia Tech.
I love it.
Just a big dude, 6'3", 285. He didn't have a lot of sacks, not much as a pass rusher. He seems like the 3-technique run stuffing Lawrence Guy type almost, who committed to the position later and just hasn't fully learned all the technicalities. And I like betting on those guys as athletes.
When you wonder,
but
yeah, you just wonder, is he big enough, right? I mean, he's only 280 pounds, right? Is he big enough to be that run stuffing 3-tech? But to your point, he's fairly new to the spot, right? And so could he develop into something, put on a little bit more weight, and develop into a guy while he's on the practice squad this year? It's a possibility, Yeah.
When he played 4 seasons at Virginia Tech, only started 4 games all this past year. So clearly very raw still as a player.
Yeah.
But I like betting on guys who have shown that athleticism before. If you're a functional athlete and you can do a lot of different things, that's a good thing. And we talked before about the ability to play on special teams and how that's so important for these guys making a roster. I look at a guy like that with that body type who also once played tight end, and it's all right, that guy can be one of your blockers on PATs for training camp at least. He can fill in at that. And all right, if he's good enough at that and there's an opportunity on the defensive line, might find his way onto the game day roster at some point because if there's injuries, you're going to use him for some of this stuff. And all right, maybe he gets an opportunity.
Yeah, there you go. And then I guess we should mention Josh Minkins from Cincinnati, safety. Transfer from Louisville, 4'5", 440, not the most athletic guy in the world. 2 picks last year, 6'1", 207, so decent size, for a safety that you might be looking for. They also signed Texas State safety Jordan Polk. Yeah. Again, 4'5", 2 in the 40, bunch of tackles last year, 4 forced fumbles, so big hitter, or at least impactful hitter.
2 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons as well.
Yeah. And so, an interesting guy. And what's interesting about the Mike Vrabel's defense, at least in particular, you look at the safeties that have been successful for him, and they're usually tweener guys. They're usually guys that kind of do a little bit of everything, right? Kevin Byard is a name that was always really good in Tennessee, but he's just kind of that in-between type player. And I think that, you bring in 2 more guys that kind of fit that kind of same mold of the guys the Patriots already have. And I think that kind of goes a long way to looking, or to at least to giving an idea of what the Patriots are looking at the position.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it's also just filling out some some of the stuff. There's so many safeties on this roster right now, man.
Yeah, a
So
million.
many of them. They got like 8 real ones here, and that's not. No, that is including Marty Mapu. No, it's 9 if we're including Brandon Crossley. Oh, and 10 with Craig Woodson too. Yeah, there's
It's
10
crazy.
safeties on this roster.
Yeah, Crossley, I
So,
think is going to be a corner more so than a safety, but you never know.
oh, sorry, I was confusing Crossley and Polk.
And Polk got it. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like they got Duggar and Peppers, you got Marcus Epps, Jalen Hawkins, Marty Mapu, Del Pettis, Brendan Schooler, Josh Minkins, Jordan Polk, and Craig Woodson.
It's wild. It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a
So
lot of
like
safeties.
which I do find it weird to add that many bodies at the position, but also re-sign Jalen Hawkins.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like why you resign Jalen Hawkins if you're going to bring in a million guys.
Or like I don't understand re-signing Hawkins and signing Epps if you're also doing all this other stuff at the position. Like maybe they're just trying to throw bodies at it because they don't like who they have there. Which is also like, all right, maybe they are not sold at all on the starting safety duo, and they would like to have a lot of options to try out because, like, they want to throw bodies at the problem.
And that's fine, but you bring back Hawkins, you draft Woodson, you sign Epps. There's 3 guys right there.
Well, none of these guys are for big money, so they
Yeah,
can.
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point.
Well,
So,
like you look at this, and it's like you can't cutting Duggar or Peppers. I think is tough with him. I think they could. I don't think you'd cut Peppers. He'd be a trade candidate if you didn't want him anymore. And I think he's
yeah.
a starter for you.
Yeah.
But like Hawkins, you can cut for nothing. Epps is Epps even going to be healthy week 1? Like he might not be in camp.
He may not be. No.
Yeah. Mapu, we're assuming here he's a safety. Maybe he's a linebacker in this scheme. Maybe they try him there. I don't know if we really know what they.
Well, Nelson's asking if, maybe he's a camp cut, which I think is a possibility.
He hasn't played that well, and these guys aren't tied to him. So, like,
Right.
outside looking in for me,
Going
with the
into
number
his
of
3rd
bodies.
year. Like,
Well, and like if you look at who they brought in, it's very easy to get to 6 safeties making this roster without him being a part of that, and that's
Absolutely.
Duggar, Peppers, Hawkins, Epps, Schooler, and Woodson.
Yeah.
I don't know how Mapu makes this. Like Mapu has to give you something. Like Mapu has to either step up for like Kyle Duggar and play that role at like a starting level right away, or switch to linebacker and be able to like play weak side linebacker. Otherwise, I don't know if he's long for this roster. Del Pettis is another guy that's like he played well for them last year. I think he showed some flashes. He's also probably just a guy and he's cheap, so they might replace him with their own flavor of just a
I
guy.
feel like it, yeah.
Who might be, maybe one of these undrafted guys. But like, I don't know. Epps, you can move on from Hawkins, you can move on from Mapu, you can move on from Pettis, you can move on from Schooler, you can move on from if you wanted. I don't think they will, but
Yeah.
I mean, then Woodson's on this roster and it's a bunch of undrafted guys. It feels like Woodson, Duggar, Peppers should be making the 53, and then you're going to have an all-out battle for what'll be, 1 to 3 other spots.
Yeah, totally true. Brendan Cross is the last guy, by the way. He is a corner.
Yeah.
And again, you just kind of throw him into the corner mix and just have him compete over there. And you got a bunch of guys over there that are going to compete, can compete, I think can play. That's going to be an interesting spot to look at. You get your top 2 locked up, right? What happens after that? Is Isaiah Bolden in the mix? Is Marcus Jones' job safe? Then you start wondering, like, okay, after the top 2, like, what the heck do we have after that, right? And so, not to say they don't have anyone, but there's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of question marks about how does that actually look, right? And I for one don't know what's going to happen. I like Alex Austin. We've talked about Alex Austin on here before. I like Alex Austin. We'll see how that plays out. But it's far from a sure thing that he's going to make the roster.
Oh yeah.
And I feel the same way, about Marcus Jones. I love Marcus Jones, but I feel the same way about Marcus Jones. And so I think Marcus Jones, what he gives you as a return man should be enough for him to make the squad. But like, you also don't know,
Yeah, the corner battle is going to be interesting. Like, I feel like Marcus Jones has enough as a special teamer that he's on that. But there are some other good potential special teamers in here. Like, Trevion Henderson's a guy who can be, I don't know if he can return punts. He can return kicks. So,
Yeah.
like, all right, that can take that part of Marcus Jones' job right there.
Sure.
So yeah, and I'm sure they have guys on this team that can return punts if they're like, anyway, we think we can trade Marcus Jones and somebody give us a fourth for him and we'll move on.
Right. I agree. So, by the way, shout out to Keel. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate that. Staple of his late nights. Thank you for being here. Val, by the way, says that 6 or 7, 6, 7, right? That's a shout out to all the middle school kids out there. That could make the roster, right? 30 new players on the 53-man roster. He's not wrong about that. It's interesting. I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen. I feel like I've said interesting 700 times this episode, but I'm very fascinated to see what happens in these, right? And who is going to be, how are all those position battles going to shake out? And not just how are they going to shake out, what is Vrabel like? What is Vrabel and his guys? What do they value, right? What kind of guys do they want on the roster? Because we don't know the answer to that question, right? Like, obviously they've come through, they've cut some guys, they've signed some guys, they've let some guys walk, but like we haven't gotten the cuts yet. So we don't know what that's going to look like. And so this training camp, I think, is going to be one where there's a ton of battles going on, and then they're going to make some choices. And I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of surprise cuts and or trades. I think they're just churning over the roster, and I think it's for the best. But I don't know. I don't know if we should set the expectations quite as high as some people have.
Well, I also think that we're talking about surprise cuts. We're talking about cuts that might be a surprise right now. Right. We might get to the second week of training camp, and it's, oh boy, that player is with the third string still. Oh, okay. I guess he's not making this roster, and you're just gonna find out pretty fast. Oh, I guess they just don't like him internally. And I think it's easy to sit here and talk about all the guys you like on a 90-man roster. At a certain point, you got to pick 11 specific ones to put on the field that you think play together well.
That's very true.
All these hypothetical discussions are great right now. You got to find those 11, and sometimes just guys get lost in the shuffle or comes out in the wash, or you only have so many roster spots. Another name here is a guy like Caden Wallace. They've talked about liking him, and he might end up snapping up one of these backup tackle jobs and going. Things go great. There's a world where you get to camp and it becomes very clear very fast. Oh, well, all the issues you saw in camp last year are still there, and that's that. And
Marcus Bryant's out playing them, and see you later.
Or not even it might be all right, all these tackles like Wallace, Demontre Jacobs, Marcus Bryant, all these guys stink. It might be week 2 of camp, and they're cutting somebody and signing a street free agent, and that guy's immediately tackle 4 on the roster, replacing that's Wallace. And oh well. That happened fast.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. We will. We'll see what happens. That's one of the reasons why I feel like I'm very much looking forward to training camp. And of course, what's funny is I talked myself into the team last year. I remember being impressed at the operation, how the operation ran at training camp, that I could see. I thought practice itself ran well. Now it turns out that they didn't really know what they were doing. They didn't really know what they wanted to do, but the operation looked good, from an outsider. I think Vrabel has a much better idea of what he's looking for and what he wants. And Terrell Williams kind of the same way. He's been around for a long time. Josh McDaniels the same thing. He's been around for a long time, running an offense, knows what he wants his offense to look like. So the one thing that we're going to have this year is a clear vision and idea of what it is that we're looking for. Now, are they going to make the best choices? Are these guys the best guys to make those choices? That I don't have an answer to, but I feel like they at least are going to look at it and say, I know what I'm looking for, and we're going to have a direct path to what we're trying to do, as opposed to last year where I felt like we were just rudderless for a while.
Yeah. Yep.
So
is that it for this one?
Okay. Yes, there were 1 or 2 things here. Oh, this was a cool one. Ben Larkin asks, Keon White started as a tight end. Would love McDaniels to see McDaniels work up some offensive packages using him. That'd be fun. Put Keon White in the backfield as the fullback, maybe, and just let him try to take someone's head off.
I like the idea. That feels also like the type of thing you do once everything is settled. They have. Yes. We just talked about. They have $1 million backup tight end level guys on this roster. So if we start seeing Keon White on offense, that means either things are going very well and they're ahead of schedule and stuff, or Keon White's in a weird spot and they're just trying to figure out a way to get him on the field.
It's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah. And I'm not
would be
opposed to using those guys in multiple ways. The Patriots have done that well for a long time now. All the way from Richard Seymour, the fullback, to Elandon Roberts, the fullback. We've seen them do that. So there's
Very
a world
true.
where that happens, but it's also I don't think they would do that with a Keon White. I think they would do that with a backup linebacker or something like that.
It kind of feels like you're right.
Or like a player like a Milton Williams is probably, if you're going to go that route, bigger, because Keon White's a taller, thinner guy, which doesn't necessarily work well as a blocker. Milton Williams has a little more substance to him and could probably push people around a little bit better.
Yeah, it's fair. The other question, and this one comes. First of all, the question from Nelson: Are you or Matt, being me, am I or you, Matt, going to training camp this year? I am definitely going to training camp. Matt, we'll see. I'd love for you to make a trip up here to go to training camp.
I gotta see my schedule. There's one weekend I was thinking about coming up, so once we get some dates, we'll figure out if we can put something together.
Yeah. Yep. And then the last question comes from my dad about AJ Highsmith, signed by the Patriots as the director of pro scouting, a quarterback and defensive back at Miami. Has bounced around the league, has been at San Fran, has been with the Bills for a while, and hired by the Titans last year to serve as the director of scouting. And so let go by the Titans. I don't know how I feel about that, right? And again, it doesn't necessarily matter. Obviously, he's working with his dad, clearly, right? But, you wonder if you look at the Titans draft last year, and listen, the Titans, I can't necessarily blame the Titans for what happened last year. Yeah. But I thought J.C. Latham, obviously they drafted him to be a tackle. He moved over to left tackle. I think he's better as a right tackle. They seem to have fixed that issue because they brought in, who the heck did they bring in? Were they the ones that brought in Dan Moore?
Yeah.
So they brought in Dan Moore to play left tackle and to move Latham back over to right tackle, which I think, you're going to see Latham actually perform well. And they also drafted T'Vondre Sweat, which I loved that draft. I wish the Patriots had drafted him. He was the pick after the Jalen Polk draft pick. But so some good picks, then some kind of misses, but I can't blame them for missing on some guys, in day 3. That's really not fair. So, although I will say, I thought, what the hell's his name? Brownlee? What was his first name? Jarvis Brownlee. I thought played pretty well for them last year. Started at corner. Wasn't great, but he played pretty good for them. And he was a 5th-round pick out of I think Florida State. Did he go to Florida State? Well, he did go to Florida State, but he also went to Louisville. So, so he found a few guys here and there. He was kind of did a good job over there. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't necessarily love it. I don't love the fact that he gets hired and he's working with his dad and everything and whatever. But, of course, a little bit different. He's the director of pro scouting as opposed to college scouting. Obviously, a different thing. He'd be looking for guys to either trade for or sign. But, nevertheless, it's we'll see how it goes. But I'm not overly excited about it.
I really only have one comment on the Highsmith thing, and all I will say on this is that there's a certain contingent of the Patriots media that would have definitely made nepotism comments about the Belichick kids when that happened that is not making those same comments now.
Quite true.
And I just think we should be even with that. Personally, it's nepotism in the NFL is tough. Because on one hand, everyone deserves a fair chance at these jobs. They're hard to get, and they're well paid. And making sure everyone gets a chance. The other side, this life, being a scout in the NFL and working behind the scenes, is very much like a vocation and a calling you have to have early in life. And by being a family member in one of these families, you get a leg up early on by learning a massive amount of football stuff from a young age, which does genuinely help you and can make you better at what you do.
True.
I can't tell if Highsmith is good at this or not from what we've seen. There's good and there's bad. It's really hard to judge from the outside without specifically knowing some of the things he's involved in and his exact input in the room and all that. So, I hope it's good. I'm not going to say nepotism stuff here. I'm just going to hope that, they're hiring him because they like him. But, we'll see, get a couple years how this hire looks, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll see. We'll see. Only time will tell as to how he's going to be. But yeah, we'll see. So I do agree, though people are awfully silent about that. But just give it a few years, and people will hate Vrabel just like they hated Belichick. So
yeah, and it's like, all right, look, we should just call it even, because it's weird that the same press that for years would hate on Belichick for doing things the way he does are now so excited to have somebody back who does things the same way, and it's like, okay, just play it even here.
Right,
Don't play both sides of this.
Right, right.
Yeah. I also will say I was doing some reading this week. I was gifted a while ago, years ago, the Mike Felger book, like Tales from the New England Patriots Sideline.
Okay.
And it's a history of the Pats, like kind of an oral history of the Pats from the 60s up until, I think it was originally written in 2004 after Super Bowl 38. But there's no stories from the Belichick years. It runs up through the Carroll years. And then there's a note from Bill Belichick at the end talking about looking back on it. And then this was the updated copy in like 2017 or something, so 2018, something like that. I was given as a gift, and I finally read it. Very interesting. I got to go back and watch some of these old Patriots clips. The 76 team, I didn't realize there were a lot of people that considered that. So when the book was written in 2004, there were people who considered the 76 team still the most talented Patriots team that had ever existed.
Yeah, because it was. That's a correct opinion, yes.
Yeah, better than the 2004, or the 04 team hadn't happened yet. Better than like the 03 team. Yeah. It's funny because it's after the 07 team, I don't think anyone would ever say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but and I don't even know if I would say the 03 team. But that 76 team was loaded with a ton of really good talent. It was a phenomenal team. They got screwed by the Raiders, which is why if anyone ever says anything to you about the Tuck rule, just go back to 1976 and tell them the Patriots should already have a Super Bowl, and it wouldn't have mattered.
One thing I didn't realize about that 76 game, everyone talks about the roughing the passer penalty. I didn't realize there was more than that.
Yeah.
The Pats could have gotten a first down to ice the game right before it, and they shot themselves. Running back goes out of bounds a yard short of the marker for no reason.
It was something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then 3rd and 1, you get a false start, so you're moving back, and then they would have had a first down. They should have had a first down by penalty because the guy got interfered with on the 3rd down play, and they just didn't get the call.
Right,
and it was the same official who called the roughing the passer. So,
and by the way, if you go back and watch Sugar Bear Hamilton hits Kenny Stabler, if you go back and watch the play, if you're under 30 years old, you're going to look at the play and say, "Oh, that's definitely roughing the passer because he hit him in the helmet." And you would be right. Except in 1976, roughing the passer would mean that you actually tried to murder the quarterback, and that's not what happened. He hit him as he was throwing it. Should never have been called roughing the passer. Was called roughing the passer, and then the Patriots got another 15-yard penalty tacked onto it for arguing the call, which then led to Stabler rushing it in and then winning the game at the buzzer. So, or essentially at the buzzer. And so, a sad way to end the season. But anyone ever complained about a Tuck rule, just point them in the direction of the 1976 game.
Yeah.
So,
but it's I recommend picking up the book. It's Mike Felger, who I don't particularly like as a radio host, but as a writer, he's very good. And I think, just a comment here on media in general, I think it tells you a lot about how the medium that you choose to express things matters a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Felger clearly is a decently smart guy. It's well written. It's great stories. Puts things together really well. It's an entertaining book. When you're not put into a format where you have to be a shock jock, clearly he's capable of producing some really good stuff. So I enjoyed that book. It was a quick read. I literally read it in 5 days. So
look at that. All right.
Yeah.
What's the name of it again?
And Tales from the New England Patriots sideline, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
okay. Tales from the
Yeah.
Sideline.
And then one other media note. I know you're going to second me here, Pat. Go see Sinners in theaters.
Oh God.
Unbelievable movie.
I went on Tuesday night by myself to go see this movie, and my God, it not only did it live up to the hype, it exceeded the hype. It was awesome. It's not a 10 out of 10, but it's damn close. It's damn close. It's by far the best movie I've seen in the theater this year. So it wasn't even close. I mean, I actually really enjoyed Thunderbolts as well. I thought Thunderbolts was very well done. I liked that a lot. I saw it twice last weekend, and then I had to go out and see Sinners. I had heard so many good things, and my goodness, it's phenomenal. Incredibly well acted. There's like 4 people that could get nominated for supporting actor or supporting actress, and I think it would be very well deserved. Just an incredibly acted movie, an incredibly shot movie. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
and Ludwig Göransson should get nominated for best score. The music in it is incredible.
Oh,
If you're familiar with him, he did Oppenheimer, which also had one of my favorite movie scores ever.
Yeah.
And then you know what else he did, Pat? He did the TV show Community.
Oh yes, what a great show that was, dude.
It's funny because that's a show to me that it's near and dear to my heart. I love that show. But you watch it, and I always thought the music was really good in it, and I was just like, man, this is just like a regular sitcom that just happens to be touching me, and I don't know, I'm just a sucker for some of the music. And then you see what the guy goes on to do, and it's like, okay, he's just really, really good at capturing emotion.
Yeah.
And he also worked on the song "This Is America" with Childish Gambino, which is like, man, this guy's got quite a repertoire.
That checks out. That does check out.
Yeah, but yeah, it's the kind of movie you want to see in the theater. I think it is.
I agree with you. I definitely agree. It's one of those funny things that you would think that maybe that wouldn't be the case. You're like, oh, whatever. But like, it's worth it to see in the movie theater. And I thought it was exceptionally well done. So, and it does have two post-credit scenes, one mid-credit scene, and then I believe one post-credit scene. As well.
I only saw one scene.
Yeah, there's a very last scene as well. There's a post-credit scene as well. So it's really short, but I'm
going to see the second time on Sunday, so I'll stay.
All right, so stick around throughout the end of it. To see that last. It's a quick scene, but it's it's a good scene.
And then one last note on this. If for anyone who's a film nerd out there, Ryan Coogler, the director, put out a video on YouTube breaking down the different film formats that they shot it on and why they chose different types of film, what they mean, the history of them, and then your options for seeing the movie and how it'll be presented, which is how I discovered that at the theater I saw it at, it's one that the specific film copy that they use is only available at 5 theaters in the world, which is crazy.
That's wild. Yeah, it's nice to be able to.
Beauty of living in New York, right there.
Yeah,
one of the 70 millimeter prints they had.
Yeah. By the way, Ryan Coogler does not miss. Just doesn't miss.
Incredible director. There's a lot of his movies I actually hadn't seen, and I'm like, I need to go back and watch these now.
I have to go
Creed
back.
Movies I've never seen.
So I've never seen Fruitvale Station, and I do want to see that. Creed, I've seen most of Creed, the original one, and then the Black Panthers. Obviously, I've seen them both, and then now Sinners as well. So, and that's really it from 2013. He doesn't put out a ton, but when he gets on one, he's real good, real good. And so anyways, so there's that.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get the heck out of here. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate it. We were all over the place today. We talked some Red Sox, we talked some Celtics, we talked some movies, mostly Patriots, but nevertheless, enjoy
the
it.
Offseason is here.
That's true. It does sound like the media is going to be in attendance tomorrow at rookie minicamp. So there'll be some stories and yes, certainly at the press conference. There'll be some stories, and I'm sure there'll be some pictures on Patriots.com of the guys out there. So that should be a lot of fun. So anyways, thanks for tuning in to us. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you early next week. And in the meantime, be good to each other and go Pats.